I'm so late. My wife made some delicious steak with, she made some delicious steak, and so I was very busy eating it. So with caramelized onions. Yo boy, yeah. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I'm so spoiled. Okay, we're going to continue where we started yesterday. Sorry, it was so delicious. It was like caramelized onion on the steak, and it was like, oh man, it was so good, man. So yes, so I'm not trying to like torment people or to be an issue here, but well, yes, actually I am. So yes. All right. Well, let me go put this here down. So we're going to continue what we started yesterday. We weren't able to get through all the presidents. We got down to Abraham Lincoln, and with Abraham Lincoln, it's kind of a little bit because of the issue of slavery. Um, I know that they're trying to make it look like he gained wisdom from Islam about slavery. Hello, Jack Ray, God bless you. But in reality, he didn't. The because um, plain and simple, Islam allows slavery, allows the beating of slaves. Islam to this day, till today, allows slavery. And so, the things that they point to is they say, well, in Islam, Muhammad says that if you've done something wrong, you got to free two slaves or something like that. But he didn't really abolish slavery. Muhammad did not abolish slavery. In fact, he owned slaves. He traded slaves. He bought slaves. He was racist in his slave trade. He beat slaves. He beat slaves. And so Muhammad's got, and he had one particular slave that everybody knows about, Bilal, and is always held up as this example of Muhammad's anti-slavery. But it's not really true because Muhammad died and Bilal was still a slave. He had to beg Abu Bakr to set him free. And so anyway, so Abraham Lincoln's connection to Islam is mainly through the slavery issue. And that's how many of the Muslims who came to America came here. It was because of the slave trade. And, shameful, shameful thing. Um, so anyway, I wanted to I have a friend who sent me a video. So before we get into our live stream, I just want to look at this video. It's actually very, very, very bad. It's a very bad video. I haven't actually seen it. So, okay, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to watch this, you guys, but let me just play part of it. It's unrelated to our topic, but a top Iranian official's son has his hand amputated after abandoning Islam to follow Jesus. We won't be able to watch the whole thing.
Iran, a city known for its mosques, seminaries, and streets humming with devotion to Islam. My name is Murshad Ghaffari. From the very beginning, my life was surrounded by the rhythm of the Adhan, the call to prayer, from loudspeakers on every rooftop. Our home stood near the shrine of Fatima Masuma, where thousands of pilgrims came every year to cry, pray, and kiss the gates. My father, I had told. When I showed my hands to my father, he didn't frown. He smiled. Good, he said. You're being purified. My favorite person in the world was my sister Nilufar. She was 2 years older than me and the only one who called me Mayor instead of Murshad. She would sneak sweets into my prayer mat before Maghrib or whisper funny stories about the neighbors when we sat in the garden. She wasn't like the rest of us. She smiled easily and prayed slowly, as if talking to a friend, not a judge. She once told me, maybe Allah is kinder than Baba makes him sound. I was only 7 when she said that, and even then, I felt something shift in my heart. But kindness was not encouraged in our house. When Nilufar reached 12, she was pulled out of school and began wearing the full black chador. My mother told her, "Your beauty is a fitna," and that was the end of her laughter. Still, on quiet days, when Baba was at a meeting in Tehran, she would sit with me by the window and tell me that the stars were watching us. She made me feel like I was more than just my father's son. By the time I turned 9, I was attending Dar al-Quran al-Karim just outside the city center. The school was strict. We had to memorize entire surahs each week, and any failure meant physical punishment. I remember one winter morning when I forgot a line from Surah Al-Ma'idah. The teacher slammed a bamboo stick across my knuckles, and my fingers bled through my gloves. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't hurt, but because crying was considered weakness, and weakness was sin. That night, when I showed my hands to my father, he didn't frown. He smiled. Good, he said. You're being purified. Something broke inside me then, something I couldn't explain. I wasn't afraid of the pain. I was afraid that no one saw me, that maybe even Allah didn't see me. I started to wonder why love had to hurt so much. But I kept those thoughts hidden. Think of all the times I had failed in my Quran recitation. Head low. They didn't want answers. They wanted shame. One of them kicked my backpack open and pulled out the hidden USB stick with the worship songs. He's spreading Christian lies, he said. He must repent publicly or face the consequences.
He became a Christian, and then he got found out.
The words made my stomach turn. I said nothing. News traveled fast. By the next morning, neighbors refused to greet my mother. My aunt called and said I had brought disgrace to the Ghaffari name. My older brother Hamid said I should leave before someone set the house on fire. But my father wasn't interested in exile. He said, if the government won't do it, I will. The Sharia is clear. Apostasy must be punished. I begged him to listen, to let me speak. I tried to explain that I wasn't against Islam. I had only found something different, something peaceful. But to him, it didn't matter. To leave Islam was to spit in Allah's face. That night, he locked me in a storage room at the back of the house. No windows, no food, just concrete and darkness. I could hear my mother crying through the wall. I whispered, Jesus, are you still with me? The silence pressed in, but somehow, I felt less afraid. On the 3rd day, they pulled me from the room and dragged me to the garden. My uncles were there, some neighbors too. I was barefoot, hands tied. My father stood in front of everyone with a short blade in his hand. It wasn't sharp like a kitchen knife. It was thick, jagged, almost ceremonial. He looked into my eyes one last time and said, you chose the cross over the crescent. Then let the world see what happens to traitors. I screamed. I begged, but no one stopped him. My left hand was held down on a block of stone. I remember the birds flying away as the blade came down. I remember the pain, hot, deep, immediate, and the sound of my own voice howling as blood poured into the dirt. I passed out before they dragged me to the field behind the house and left me there, half conscious, bleeding, covered in a sheet like a corpse. That night, I thought I would die. The stars above me blurred in my vision. The cold air stung my face. I pressed my right hand against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding, but it kept flowing. I whispered Jesus' name again and again, not loudly, not with strength, but like a child calling for his mother in the dark. Then something strange happened. I felt warmth, not from the air, not from my body, but from deep inside, like someone was holding me. I couldn't see anyone, but I felt it. A presence, gentle, steady, loving. It didn't take away the pain, but it told me I wasn't alone. I whispered, you see me, don't you? And then I blacked out. When I opened my eyes, I was in a stranger's car, bleeding, shivering, but alive. A Christian man from our neighborhood had found me while walking his dog. He wrapped my arm, carried me to his car, and said, "You're safe now." That moment saved my life. But it was just the beginning. My hand was gone. My family had cast me out. The city I once called home had become my grave. But Jesus had met me in that grave. And I knew then, as I sat in that car with my blood soaking the seat, that I would never return to who I was before. They cut off my hand to silence me. But the truth I had found, he was alive. And no blade, no prison, no shame could ever take him away from me. I woke up in a room that smelled of vinegar, blood, and old cloth. My head was pounding, and my entire body trembled. I didn't know where I was, but I wasn't in calm anymore. The man who rescued me, a Christian named Arash, had brought me to a hidden apartment in a quiet neighborhood in South Tehran, not far from Beheshti or a cemetery. He worked with an underground network that helped persecuted believers escape or survive after attacks like mine. "You're safe now," he said gently, checking the bandage on what remained of my left arm. His wife, Lala, was a nurse who had once worked at Sina Hospital but was fired when they found out she had converted to Christianity. She cleaned my wounds in silence, her face calm, but her hands quick and steady. I couldn't speak. The pain in my body was overwhelming, but the silence in my heart was louder. The first few nights I drifted in and out of sleep, sometimes mumbling from the pain, sometimes weeping without sound. I remember one evening when the fever spiked. I shook violently, soaked in sweat, my vision blurring as I slipped into unconsciousness. That was when I saw him again, the man in white. He stood in a vast valley, surrounded by light that didn't burn but wrapped around me like warmth in winter. I didn't hear his voice, but somehow I understood him. He stretched out his hand, not with power, not with force, but with tenderness. My missing hand was whole in the dream, and I lifted it toward his. The moment our hands touched, I felt something wash over me, something purer than water and deeper than blood. When I woke, I was crying, gasping for air, whispering, "Jesus, you didn't leave me." Lala was beside me, placing a wet cloth on my head, whispering prayers softly in Farsi. As the days passed, my body started healing slowly. I still had phantom pain where my hand used to be, but something else was changing too. Arash gave me a Bible, my own copy, hidden in a worn-out poetry book cover. I opened it carefully and began to read again. This time, the words felt alive. Every verse in the book of John spoke to my wounds.
Wow. 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 That's super intense, man. Wow. Somebody just sent that to me. Dang. Dang. Unbelievable. Hello, Emmanuel. How are you, brother? God bless you. So, if you'd like to come on, Emmanuel. Let's see, how do I do this? Okay. I'm doing something real simple today about American presidents and their relationship to Islam. And so we did yesterday, we did from George Washington to Abraham Lincoln. And there were a couple who had some really good things to say. The rest of them kind of were milk toast, politically correct. And so I just want to look at, but anyway, guys, that testimony is top Iran official's son has hand amputated for abandoning Islam. Wow. Lord Jesus. All right. Well, let's go back to our presidents now. The next president after let's see, where is it? Okay. After Abraham Lincoln, the next president is Andrew Johnson. I think we've didn't we talk about Andrew Johnson yesterday, I think? Oh no, we talked about Andrew Jackson. So let's see what Groff has to say about this. Did President Andrew Johnson ever say anything about Islam? There's no direct evidence, well documented, personal views on Islam or any explicit statements he made about the religion. Um, During the period when the U.S. had limited diplomatic or cultural historical context suggests that Johnson, a Southern Democrat, um, often viewed non-Christian religions through a lens of unfamiliarity or bias. Okay, I wish that they would talk. Please talk. Please talk. Please talk. I wonder why it's not talking. Please talk. Please talk. Please talk. Seems like you're asking to have her continue the conversation, possibly about. Can you start talking instead of writing? I'm sorry, but I can only communicate through text since I'm a written-based AI. If you meant like me to use a more conversation spoken, please talk. Hello. Okay. Anyway, doesn't seem like that president, Andrew Johnson, had much to say um, about Islam. Let me see. About the next president is Ulysses S. Grant and his relationship to Islam. I'm assuming you're referring to Andrew Johnson, again, continuing our relation. What was Ulysses S. Grant's relationship to Islam? All right, let's dive into any connection to Islam. He was the 18th president, serving from 1869 to 1877. So he had two terms then. Okay, and a legendary. He was. You see, that's what I remember. He was a Civil War general. Okay, uh, dealing with a fractured nation. So Islam wasn't exactly a hot topic in his world. The U.S. had limited contact with Muslim majority regions back then, so most through trade or minor diplomatic ties, like the Ottoman Empire. There's no evidence in Grant's writing, speeches, or extensive records that specifically addressed Islam or his followers, or its followers. His focus was domestic issues, voting rights for black men, tackling the Ku Klux Klan violence. He didn't heavily involve Muslim majority countries, though he did visit some during his post presidency. He traveled to Egypt, to Israel. It wasn't Israel back then. Uh, he visited Christian and Jewish sites, but there's no record of him reflecting on Islam. Okay, so Ulysses S. Grant, very important president. He was a general during the Civil War. So, can you please tell me anything about Rutherford B. Hayes's relationship to Islam? All right, let's chat about Rutherford B. Hayes. Hayes was the 19th president. Is there any connection between Rutherford B. Hayes and Islam? Let's dive into Rutherford B. Hayes. He was a Reconstruction era. Reconstruction is when they were rebuilding the country after the Civil War, advancing civil rights and tackling government corruption. His time in office was pretty domestic, so Islam and Muslim majority regions were not exactly front and center in his world. There was limited engagement and distant relations with the Ottoman Empire or North Africa. So a finding of a direct link is a long shot. Okay, his diaries and letters. Okay. Uh, he talks about religion, but mostly Christianity. His own Methodist faith shaped his moral outlook. Okay. And he emphasized moral and religious instruction in education. But this was from Christianity, not from Islam. Okay. Okay. The Ottoman Empire was on the decline at this time, and so the U.S. did not have diplomatic contact with them. Okay, so let's look at the next president, James Garfield. Let's see. Is there any connection between President James A. Garfield and Islam? Let's dive into James Garfield. Straight up, there's no direct evidence of Garfield's writings or speeches or records where he mentioned Islam or its followers. His time in office was dominated by domestic issues like civil service reform, post-Reconstruction politics. There's minimal engagement with Muslim majority regions. Diplomatic ties with the Ottoman Empire or North African states were mostly about trade and consular matters. Okay, so he was deeply religious. Man, he was raised in Disciples of Christ, a Protestant denomination, and his personal writings often reflect a strong Christian faith. For instance, uh, he emphasized the importance of Christian culture in schools. Wow, which suggests his worldview rooted in Western religious tradition. Okay, all right. See, I'm not really expecting there to be that much. I was actually surprised that there was some stuff with Abraham Lincoln and with George Washington. Oops, clear. Is there any connection to Islam with President Chester A. Arthur? Keeping it conversational, as you've been asking. He was the 21st president, served from 1881 to 1885 after James A. Garfield's assassination. Oh, wow. So James Garfield was assassinated. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that he was assassinated. I thought there was only two presidents that were assassinated, Lincoln and Kennedy, but apparently Garfield was also assassinated. He wasn't a globetrotter. See if we can't find any connections to Islam. There's no direct evidence in his writings uh, that he specifically commented on Islam or its followers. Uh, the U.S. limited contact with Muslim majority regions. Um, Arthur wasn't particularly religious in public, though he was raised in a Baptist family. He didn't dive deep into religion at all, let alone Islam. Okay, Muslim community in which many sense, since Muslims were virtually non-existent in the U.S. at that time. Okay, so there's no real connection there. Okay, the next president is Grover Cleveland. Let's see what if there's anything there. Did President Grover Cleveland have any interest or connection to Islam? He was the 22nd and 24th president. Really? 22nd and 24th. He's kind of like Donald Trump. He had a term, and then somebody else was the 23rd president, and then he was president again. I think there's two presidents that did that, him and Donald Trump. Okay. He was a no nonsense guy focused on fiscal conservatism. His two non consecutive terms were all about domestic issues. Okay. Did Grover Cleveland, did, did President, did President Grover Cleveland, did President Grover Cleveland have any, did President Grover Cleveland have any connection to Islam? Oops. Oh boy, yeah, what happened? Well, Islam wasn't exactly a headline in the world. There's no direct evidence Islam or its followers. He was called the veto president because he vetoed a lot of bills. He had minimal engagement with Muslim majority regions. Basic ties with the Ottoman Empire. He wasn't very religious, but he was raised Presbyterian, generally supported Christian values. Okay. All right. The next president is Benjamin Harrison. Let's see what he says. Was there any connection between President Benjamin Harrison and Islam? Harrison was the 23rd president, 1889 to 1893, one-term president. Okay, he's kind of like Joe Biden. Like Joe Biden was the one term between Trump's two terms. Benjamin Harrison was the one term between Grover Cleveland's two terms. Right off the bat, there's no direct evidence in his writings um, where he specifically commented on Islam or its followers. His presidency was all about domestic issues, antitrust laws. The U.S. in the early 1890s had limited contact with Muslim majority regions, domestic ties with the Ottoman Empire. He was a devout Presbyterian, and his public statements often reflect Christian values. He spoke about the favor of God in guiding the nation. This was clearly rooted in America's Christian norms. Okay, so the next president is William McKinley. Let's see what it says about him. Is there any connection between President William McKinley and Islam? He was the 25th president from 1897 to 1901, best known for leading the U.S. through the Spanish-American War, annexing territories like the Philippines, boosting economic growth through prosperous but turbulent time. He saw America beginning to flex its global muscles. So let's see if Islam pops up anywhere. Straight up, there's no direct connection. His focus was on domestic issues and winning the Spanish-American War. There's limited contact. Here's where it gets a bit interesting, though. McKinley's presidency did touch on a region with a significant Muslim population, the Philippines. After the U.S. won the Spanish-American War, the Philippines became a U.S. territory, and parts of the islands, especially Mindanao and the Sulu archipelago, had a sizable Muslim communities known as the Moros. McKinley's administration dealt with the Moros during the early stages of U.S. occupation, which led to the Moro Rebellion, 1899, mostly after McKinley's death. McKinley talked about governing the Philippines with justice. Okay. He didn't explicitly mention Islam or the Moros. His focus was on pacifying, administering the territory. Okay, so at least there was some interaction there with Muslims. So. Okay, the next president is a famous one. Did President Theodore Roosevelt have any connection to Islam? Keeping it, okay. He's the 26th president, was a larger-than-life figure, rough rider, trust-busting, time when the U.S. was stepping onto the global stage. So there's a bit more to work with here compared with other. First off, okay, come on, what happened? Theodore Roosevelt's connection to Islam. What was Theodore Roosevelt's connection to Islam? He carried a big stick. Okay, that's what it says. Kind of like, who was it that said that? Walk, carry a big stick. Speak softly and carry a big stick. That's what he said. That was his approach to foreign policies. Unlike his predecessors, he did have some direct engagement with Muslim populations through colonial policies in the Philippines after the Spanish-American Wars and Southern Islands. Okay. The U.S. faced the Moro Rebellion, a resistance against American rule. Roosevelt's administration took a hardline approach to pacify the region with military campaigns. Okay. He referred to the Moros as savage and semi-civilized, emphasizing the need to establish order and governance. He was aware of the Muslim Moros, though his comments were more about their resistance than Islam. Roosevelt's views on Islam itself are harder to pin down. He didn't leave explicit statements like those in his autobiography that dive into Islam as a faith. However, in 1919, written after his presidency, Whenever the Mohammedans have had complete sway, wherever the Christians have been unable to resist them by the sword, Christianity has ultimately disappeared. Wow. Even back then they said that. Wherever Mohammedans have had complete sway, wherever the Christians have been unable to resist them by the sword, Christianity has ultimately disappeared. Wow. Think about Syria and Iraq. This quote, sometimes cited on X Post, is from a letter to friends about the conflict between Christianity and Islam, like the Crusades or Ottoman expansion. Suggests a skeptical or critical perspective on Islam's historical impact. Wow. That's a pretty intense thing to say. Okay, next president is William Howard Taft. Let's see. Is there any connection between President William Howard Taft and Islam? He's the 27th president. He was a guy with a big resume. Okay. Later, he was a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So there was a bit to work with, okay. Had direct ties to a region with a Muslim population. The most direct connection, again, to the Philippines. He worked on the Bates Agreement, okay. The Moro leaders, like those, okay. Taft described the Moros, those are the Muslims, as fierce, but capable of cooperation, focusing on their tribal and cultural traits rather than Islam as a religion. He saw them as semi-civilized, in need of American guidance. His focus was on stabilizing the territory. Okay. They were more interested in dealing with the politics, not the faith. Okay. Taft's involvement was routine with no recorded comments on Islam. Taft, bad news. Taft was a Unitarian, a liberal Christian denomination, and his public rhetoric rarely leaned heavily on religion. Okay. All right. All right, who's the next president? Okay, Woodrow Wilson. This guy is in trouble. Is there any connection between President Woodrow Wilson and Islam? Let me just tell you one thing about Woodrow Wilson, you guys. He was a president. He was a president during the Armenian genocide, which was carried out by the Muslims in Turkey. Was a prominent exponent, widely known for his works on really some other lies. That's funny. Okay. Domestic. Okay. His arrow saw the U.S. engaging more with parts of the Muslim majority Middle East right off the bat. No direct evidence. Comments about Islam. But his foreign policy would bring him into connection with the Ottoman Empire. The most significant connection comes to Wilson's role in World War I. and its aftermath. The Ottoman Empire, a Muslim majority power, was allied with Germany and collapsed after the war. Wilson's 14 points, outlined in 1918, called for self-determination for nations, including those under Ottoman rule, like Arab populations in the Middle East. His push for open covenants, okay, creating Iraq and Syria. Wilson didn't focus on Islam itself, but on geopolitical restructuring. Okay, Arab Muslims' aspiration for independence. Okay, so Wilson was a devout Presbyterian, and his worldview was steeped in Christian moralism. His views were His administration dealt with the Ottoman Empire diplomatically before the U.S. entered the war. It was protecting American missionaries in Turkey. Okay, are practical, not religious. I was kind of hoping it would say something about the Armenian genocide because he was the one who was. There's also a modern claim, sometimes floated on X or online, that Wilson warned about an Islamic infiltration or similar ideas, but these are usually misattributed. I'm surprised it doesn't say anything about the Armenian genocide because he was president during that time. Okay, so let's see who's next. Next president is William Harding. Is there any connection between President Warren Harding and Islam? Teapot Affair plagued scandal. He had a short, scandal-plagued presidency, known for the Teapot Dome Affair, and returned to normalcy after World War One. Domestic. Let's see. Okay, right up. There's no direct evidence of Harding's speeches, uh, or that he specifically commented on Islam. It's about getting the U.S. back on track after the war, tax, labor. In the early 1920s, minimal engagement with Muslim majority regions through diplomatic ties with the declining Ottoman Empire. It was pretty hands-off in terms of foreign policy. Turkey he didn't involve to limit naval arms, which didn't involve Muslim majority countries like Turkey or Persia directly. Harding was a Baptist, but he wasn't very vocal about his faith. His speeches were about American values and Christian context. Okay, he didn't travel to Muslim countries. Okay, all right. Calvin Coolidge is the next president. Did President Calvin Coolidge have any connection to Islam? Okay. Had limited engagement with Muslim countries. Coolidge's approach was super restrained. The Middle East was largely under British and French influence after World War One, and the U.S. stayed to the sidelines. The administration worked with Turkey, normalized U.S.-Turkey relationships after the Ottoman collapse. Okay. A Congregationalist of a Protestant denomination. He had Christian values, but he wasn't preachy. Okay. All right. So not a lot. Okay. So the next president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, the King of America. Did Franklin Roosevelt have any connection to Islam? Oh, shoot. Okay. I've reached my limit. I've reached my limit. I wonder if I got this other one. Deep Seek. I don't know if this is the same thing. It's called Deep Seek. It'll just take me a second here and see if I can get. Is there any connection between Franklin Roosevelt and Islam? Wow. He interacted with Muslims in North Africa. Yeah. He was a Protestant Christian. FDR had no personal religious ties to Islam. His presidency at the beginning uh, had deeper U.S. engagement with Muslim world, particularly through oil diplomacy. So that's a new thing, oil diplomacy, post-strategic war consideration. Meeting with Ibn Saud, which is the one of the founders of Saudi Arabia, set the stage for U.S. relations. Okay, so there's a connection there. Oil. Okay. All right. Well, he was a long time. He was there for from 1933 until 1945. He had four times he was called the King of America. So okay, next one. Did President Harry Truman have any connection to Islam? Oh, he did a very big thing though. He's the president who recognized Israel. He's the president who recognized Israel. That's Harry Truman, you guys. Especially on Israel, Turkey, and the Cold War had lasting effects on U.S. Muslim world relations. While he had no personal ties to Islam, his decisions deeply influenced America's engagement with Muslim nations. Okay, he was a Baptist Christian. Okay, um, he gave economic aid to Turkey and Greece to resist communism. He engaged with Iran from 1951 to 53 through the oil crisis. He tried to balance support for Israel with ties to the Muslim world. Okay, well, So he's the one who recognized Israel. So interesting. Okay, the next one is Dwight. Okay. What is the connection between Dwight D. Eisenhower and Islam? He had significant connections with the Muslim world. He saw Muslim majority countries as crucial in containing the Soviet Union. He opposed support for Muslim allies um, against communism. Eisenhower symbolically embraced religious diplomacy, including Islam, as part of the Cold War propaganda. He invited Muslim leaders to his inauguration. He supported the construction of the Islamic Center in Washington, D.C., and called it a tribute to Islamic culture. In 1957, he praised Islam's great cultural and spiritual heritage. However, his interventions like the Iran coup sowed long-term distrust. Interesting. So this guy, Eisenhower, was really very much more involved than most of the other presidents so far. What was John F. Kennedy's relationship to Islam? You know, support for anti-colonial movements, and was first U.S. president to openly criticize European colonialism, like Obama. Um, Kennedy deepened ties with Pakistan, symbolic gestures towards Islam, a great religion with shared values. That's what he called Islam. He tried to pressure Israel not to go nuclear. It was during his lifetime that Israel went nuclear, or started building its nuclear reactor, Dimona. Kennedy's relationship with the Muslim world was marked with anti-colonial sympathy. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about that, you guys. um, yeah. All right. Okay. So John F. Kennedy, he started all the, you know, he's the first president to sell advanced weapons to Israel. His administration supported Muslim cultural exchanges to counter Soviet propaganda in Africa and Asia. He praised Islam's contributions during a 1961 speech at the Islamic Center of Washington, D.C., calling it a great religion with shared values. Okay, so beginning to sound like Joe Biden type. Okay, well, we're almost done, you guys. We just got a few more to go here. I tell you, I'm learning some stuff. I didn't know about a lot of this. Okay, the next president is Lyndon B. Johnson. What was Lyndon B. Johnson's connection to Islam? He had a complex, contentious relationship with the Muslim world. Hmm. I bet you it's Israel related. Okay, it's during the Six-Day War. See, so everything now can be seen through the connection through the Israel, also the Vietnam War. LBJ's connection to Islam was primarily strategic, not personal or ideological. His policy strengthened ties with pro-Western Muslim regimes like Saudi Arabia and Iran, but alienated Arab nationalists and leftists, contributing to later anti-Americanism. The Six-Day War remains his most consequential impact on the Muslim world. Six-Day War, that's where Israel fought, um, see, the Six-Day War was in 1967. That's when Israel fought Syria, Egypt, Jordan, and defeated them. Did not emphasize interfaith dialogue with Muslim leaders. He allowed more Muslim immigration. Okay. All right. We're getting close to the end here, you guys. Okay. Richard Nixon. Yeah, boy, yeah, we really are getting close to the end. What was Richard Nixon's connection to Islam? Richard Nixon had a consequential but complex relationship with Islam. Okay. With Iran, Pakistan, the Yom Kippur. He was there during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, and he helped Israel. Outreach to Muslim leaders, Libya, Indonesia, okay, domestic policy in Muslim Americans. Nixon's connection to Islam was strategic, transactional, Cold War driven. He empowered U.S. strongmen while ignoring democratic movements, leaving a legacy of both stability and blowback. His policies influenced later U.S. engagements, from the Iranian Revolution to the rise of OPEC. He armed the Shah of Iran and showed support for Pakistan's uh, immigration in 1973. Oil crisis boosted Muslim immigration. Engineers, doctors from Muslim majority countries helped some Muslim minorities, though not explicitly targeted. Okay. Okay, Gerald R. Ford. He was like, what was Gerald R. Ford's connection to Islam? Now, you know that there was one of they tried to assassinate him. What was Gerald R. Ford's connection to Islam? He was the 38th president, did not have direct personal connection to Islam, but his administration engaged with Muslim majority countries, um, with the Shah of Iran, relations with Iran, immigration, to Muslim communities. No personal religious. Gerald Ford's connection to Islam was primarily through diplomatic geopolitical engagements, Cold War alliances in the Muslim world. He was not known for any deep personal involvement or Islamic culture or faith. Okay. Okay, then Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's connection to Islam. Jimmy Carter, 39th president, humanitarian work, engagement with Muslim nations, Camp David Accords, the peace process between Israel and Egypt, the Iranian Revolution and his surrender to the mullahs. Through his weakness came about the Iranian Revolution, which President Trump brought to an end. Carter's connection to Islam was primarily political and humanitarian, shaped by Middle East diplomacy, Camp David, Iran, Afghanistan, peace building in Muslim nations, interfaith engagement, though he remained a devout Christian. Unlike some later presidents, Carter did not emphasize his personal religious connections to Islam, but worked extensively with Muslim leaders and community on policy and aid issues. Okay. Next, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan's relationship to Islam. Largely Cold War related. Support for Afghan Mujahideen against Russia. He called them freedom fighters. Iran-Contra affairs, secret arms for hostages. Alliance with Muslim-majority autocrats, including Saddam Hussein. Let's see. Unlike later presidents, Reagan rarely spoke about Islam as a religion. He praised Islam's strong spiritual foundation, but framed the Cold War as a fight against godless communism, not Islam. Reagan clashed with Muammar Gaddafi, calling him a mad dog, and bombing Libya after the Berlin disco bombing. He backed Saddam Hussein's Iraq during the Iran-Iraq War. He partnered with Saudi Arabia. Okay. George Bush's relationship to Islam. Complex relationship shaped. Okay, now this is George W. Bush, shaped by the 9/11 attacks. Face of terror is not okay. Then he went to war against the Freedom Agenda. Outreach to Muslim. Bush made effort to improve America's image in the Muslim world. Funding for Africa. Mixed legacy. Some Muslims appreciated his interfaith rhetoric and initiatives. Many blamed him for wars and civilian casualties and Islamophobic policies, like the Muslim ban, though this term is associated with Trump. Okay. Bush's relation to Islam was dual. He defended Islam as a religion while pursuing policies that many Muslims saw as hostile. His legacy is debated. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Bill Clinton's relationship to Islam. He had a nuanced relationship to Islam. engaged with the Israeli-Palestinian peace accord. He ordered interventions in Somalia, Bosnia, Kosovo, Iraq, counterterrorism and against Al Qaeda. Seen as a humanitarian, Islam was pragmatic, balancing military action with diplomacy. He avoided framing conflicts as Islam versus the West, unlike later presidents, but his interventions had lasting consequences. Okay, we only have a few more here, guys. President Barack Obama's connection to Islam. Except for the fact that he is a Muslim. Barack Obama's connection to Islam has been the subject of misinformation, political attacks, genuine curiosity. Birthplace. He was far right conspiracy. Childhood in Indonesia. Counterterrorism policy criticized by Muslims. Mixed legacy in the Muslim world. What? This is baloney. Obama had no personal ties to Islam. Really? My goodness. He understood its cultural and political significance. While he combated anti-Muslim bigotry at home, his foreign policy still drew criticism from Muslims worldwide. Okay, he really spoke against Islamophobia, appointed many Muslim Brotherhood members to his White House. There was at least 5. Targeted killings, ordered the killing that killed Osama bin Laden. Distinguished Islam from terrorism, criticized the term radical Islam, Islamic terrorism. He wouldn't say radical Islamic terrorism. He said Islam has always been a part of America's story. Addressed the Muslim world, calling for mutual respect and quoting from the Quran, Islam has always been part of America's story. That's a quote from the Quran. Oh my goodness. He consistently defended Muslims while combating extremism. He lived in Jakarta with his stepfather, an Indonesian Muslim, attended a Catholic school and a public school with Islamic classes, given cultural familiarity but no formal Islamic upbringing. He wrote that his family was not devout and he never practiced Islam. Obama said he's a Christian. He joined the Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago. This thing sounds like a left-wing propagandist. Okay. Donald Trump's relationship to Islam. Hmm? Hardline rhetoric, controversial policies, saw some of the most aggressive anti-Muslim measures. Muslim ban, travel ban, embraced Mohammed bin Salman, Syria, Somalia, ISIS. He defeated ISIS, which was created by Barack Obama. Far-right symbiosis. Trump's relationship with Islam was defined by hostility, transactional alliances with dictators, and policies that alienated Muslim communities. While he avoided framing the war on terror in religious terms, unlike Bush, his actions and rhetoric intensified Islamophobia in America and abroad. Shut up, you're such a liar. Okay. Okay, and this one isn't even worth asking, but sorry, you guys, I have to ask. What is Joe Biden's relationship to Islam? This is the last one, you guys. Unless you want me to do Kamala Harris. efforts to reverse the Donald Trump's most controversial reversing Trump's anti-Muslim policies. He rescinded the Muslim ban. He allowed lots of refugees to come from Muslim countries. He surrendered to condemnation of backed Israel. Okay. He backed Israel? Okay. Biden's relationship with Islam is more inclusive than Trump's, but remains complicated by foreign policy. While he has symbolically and legislatively improved conditions for U.S. Muslims, his stance on Gaza eroded trust among many Muslims. Okay, you guys. Well, we actually covered all 47 American presidents. Lots of propaganda. A lot of that was propaganda. You know, it's amazing. So, Operation Praying Mantis. So, Iran, yes. All right, you guys. Well, we made it an hour and 12 minutes. So, that's pretty good. And I got to get up really early tomorrow. So, God bless you guys. Thank you for being with us. If you haven't done it, please do it now. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. يسوع ساعدني. يسوع سامحني. يسوع ادخل قلبي. We love you, but much more importantly, he loves you. Have a wonderful night.
If you have ever wondered why dull apologists lie so much, it's because on a rare occasion that they tell the truth. This happens.
One of the reasons I accepted Islam was the scientific miracles. I'll be honest with you. And now we know that this whole scientific miracles was absolute nonsense.
You're going to have to repeat that.
That the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say.